today, in terms of this next session, we really wanted to talk through where we're at in terms of the MYOB Exo release cycle, what's been, what's coming, and why we encourage clients to undertake upgrades on a regular basis. The other thing we want to tackle is some industry updates that impact all of us. Some of these elements we've actually talked through in previous sessions, but we're going to cover them off, give you a bit of an update in terms of where some of the compliance changes within the industry. So firstly, within the MYOB Exo platform, one of the areas that we cover in terms of compliance is the taxable payments reporting system within Australia. Taxable payments reporting is an area which has been covered by Exo functionality for some period of time, and essentially provides a mechanism by which certain industries, to enable certain industries to capture payments that are made to contractors for provision of services. This is an ATO compliance issue where they're trying to ensure capturing of that sort of contractor type work. Previously, the taxable payments reporting system had really only applied to the building and construction services industries. But recently this has actually been expanded into a number of other industries. Essentially, as a part of that taxable payments reporting system, there's a annual TPAR report, or taxable payments annual report, which is provided to the ATO, identifying all payments that are made to applicable contractors. There's actually a task force called the Black Economy Task Force, which is a fantastic name. And they prompted several extensions to this program. The first one of those was for the courier and cleaning industries, which started essentially in August 2019. And as of this year, 28th of August 2020, they've also added the road freight, security, investigation, surveillance, and IT services industries to that program as well. If you are utilising contractors and are sitting within one of those industries, you need to be aware of this requirement. And if you have the need, MYOB Exo can support you. TPAR reporting's standard within Exo as a 2018.1 and later, and it enables automatic submission via the ATO standard business reporting functionality. There's more information available on the ATO website, of course, and if you do need any further information on that, please don't hesitate to ask a question with that Q&A button on your Zoom window, or contact your account manager for further details. Another area that we're seeing significant momentum in the moment is in this area of e-invoicing. And Ronnie Baskin talked to that previously, but certainly we see some significant velocity across government overall in terms of how do we support business in accelerating automation, in accelerating e-commerce, and accelerating, in some respects, the provision of data as well to the government, who can certainly make use of that. The e-invoicing strategy was announced back in February 2019 as a joint Australian-New Zealand strategy to essentially enable e-invoicing across organisations large and small. The estimate that Scott and Jacinda provided was that the industry overall would save an approximate $30 billion worth of transaction costs in 10 years. This has continued to get momentum within the industry. We've actually seen a number of updates in terms of this program. And I'm just switching slides there. We've seen that Australia and New Zealand have adopted the Pan-European Public Procurement Online framework, or the PEOPL framework, essentially as a standard interoperability framework to support e-invoicing. PEOPL is already in use across 32 countries in Europe, Asia, and North America, and we certainly see an opportunity there as well for that to become part of a broader e-invoicing framework across not just Australia and New Zealand clients, but also globally as well. We see a news release released in November 2019, essentially covering off the fact that the ATO has really moved into that adoption phase. And they've introduced this concept of a digital service provider to support the initiative. As a part of that, the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment within New Zealand has actually become the PEOPL Authority for New Zealand and have responsibility of overseeing New Zealand's e-invoicing framework. As of 19th of December 2019, a Wellington-based business became the first business in New Zealand to use e-invoicing based on that standardised framework. setting the scene for really those savings and that cross-industry rationalisation that we're trying to see. As a part of this as well, you'll see that Australia and New Zealand have already accredited several service providers to support clients with these e-invoicing requirements. An e-invoicing service provider basically provides a combination of access point, service metadata, and translation services as well to enable different businesses with different accounting and ERP systems to essentially have translations between them for this e-invoicing peephole framework. Quite a number of EDI providers have actually taken a front foot in providing early access to the e-invoicing programs, and you can actually adopt and embark on an e-invoicing project today. We're already starting to have conversations with some government departments who are certainly on the front foot in terms of these invoicing programs. And there are links on both the ATO website and the NZBN website that talk to the current authorised service providers that can assist with those programs. In terms of our MYOB Exo releases, we encourage clients to stay up to date with the version of Exo that they're running. And there's a number of reasons that it makes sense to stay up to date on your Exo version. Firstly, of course, it does introduce new enhancements and increased functionality. We saw Murray talk to, and a great example of that with cash flow forecasting, something that I know a lot of our Exo clients have been asking for some time. It's great to see that come on board, and we're looking forward to seeing the future iterations of that as they start to look towards more of that, increased forward-looking forecasting features as well. Of course, another reason to continue with Exo upgrades is to ensure that we've got ongoing and improved compatibility with Microsoft. As a Windows application, Exo is very much dependent upon your Windows version, your Office versions, your server versions. And in order to stay current, we need to ensure that as your IT platform goes through upgrades, that the version of Exo that you're running actually supports those. You'd be surprised the number of times that we come in on a Monday morning, we get a call from a client whose IT department has suddenly upgraded the entire organization to a new version of Office 365 over the weekend, and then find that they can't email invoices all of a sudden, or they update versions of Windows or embrace new patches and see issues with integration with Exo. Of course, we can't expect a 10-year-old version of Exo to work efficiently with the current version of Windows or the current version of Office. New versions of Exo are tested and verified against versions of Windows, SQL Server, Office, and the other platform applications that we depend on. So it's really important to make sure that you keep your Exo upgrades in line with your platform upgrades, your IT infrastructure upgrades. Of course, new versions of Exo also introduce bug fixes. Yes, unfortunately, software does contain bugs, but each version, of course, we see those rectified, and the quality of the Exo releases are only increasing over time. Another reason, of course, for continuing with Exo upgrades is to ensure the ongoing effectiveness of staff training. We really do encourage our clients to keep their staff trained on how to utilize Exo, not just how to utilize Exo, but the best approach to utilize Exo. You'd be surprised the number of instances where we implement Exo within an organization, a few years go by, and then all of a sudden, Joe gets replaced by Jane, and then Jane gets replaced by Bill, and Bill gets replaced by Patrick, and all of a sudden you have this degradation of knowledge, this degradation of skills in terms of the best approach to utilize Exo. I can think of an example recently where we had a client who was having troubles with their whole invoicing process. They were doing multiple hundreds of invoices per day and complaining about just how long it took to go through that invoicing process. We were trying to understand what was going on at first until we actually realized that they were going into each invoice one by one. When we mentioned that there was a batch invoice function that was available within Exo and demonstrated in about 2.5 minutes flat, the look of wonder that comes onto an admin person's eyes when they realize the time that's been wasted and the opportunity for improvement is encouraging. So it's important to ensure that your staff sort of maintain that level of knowledge, are up to date in terms of the newer versions of Exos and the new features and productivity improvements that brings, of course. And lastly, we also rely upon new versions of Exo to ensure ongoing MYOB support. Enterprise and Kilimanjaro continue to support versions of Exo, no matter how old they are, but of course, we are often dependent upon MYOB for their support. We have clients using versions of Exo back to Exo 6000, but we are, it does introduce risk. The fact is, if they upgrade their IT environment substantially, there's a risk that they could actually have an impact to their business. And so we encourage ongoing upgrades to your Exo version, ensuring that we can support your platform as your IT infrastructure changes, and ensure that we've got the backing of MYOB in their support as well. In terms of supported versions, MYOB operates a 2-year window of support from the point that an Exo version is released to the end of that Exo support. So the current oldest supported version of Exo is 2018.4. 2018.3 was released on the 8th of August in 2018. Of course, support for 2018.3 ended on the 8th of August 2020. So we essentially have a 2-year support window. We encourage clients to kind of update every 12 to 18 months as a bit of a general rule of thumb. This is a slide that unfortunately just is a little bit outdated back to February 2020. It doesn't reflect any of the newer versions of the 2020 Exo releases. But we have approximately 40% of clients running on supported Exo versions. That's across the Exo user base. So there are a large number of clients running in an on-premise environment where they haven't necessarily adopted new versions of Exo. And they haven't maintained a supported version. So we encourage you to give some thought to what version you're running, give some thought to how your version upgrades potentially fit in with your IT infrastructure upgrades, and work to that recommended upgrade window. In terms of updates, we typically see between 3 and 5 Exo versions each year. In 2015, we had 5 Exo releases. 2016, we had 3. 2017, we had 3. 2018, we had 5. And 2019, of course, introduced a very important update with the Tokyo release, where there was a significant back-end schema changes and significant changes to the framework and the tools that MYOB actually used to develop Exo. That's given us the ability to actually provide some significant user interface improvements in the 2020 version of releases. So as of 2020, we've seen 2 new versions released. 2020.1 focusing on that sort of core Exo business user interface refresh, and 2020.2 focusing on that Exo CRM and job costing user interface refresh. The other thing that you'll have noticed potentially, and I know that one of our clients on the webinar has called this out, is that the version of Exo that Murray was using was a 2020 version. You'll notice the significant change in terms of look and feel, the Flutter user interface, the simple access to favorites on that left-hand panel, and just some really good increases in terms of usability. In terms of the Exo roadmap, 2020.3 is the next version that we're expecting to be released in the coming months. And this is sort of continuing this theme of addressing the user experience and usability. The 2019 series really talked to security, performance, and really trying to lay the foundations for the next generation of Exo releases. In the 2020 series, we're seeing the user interface refreshes and usability increases. And then we expect in 2021 for the focus to really move back to functionality improvements, how we actually improve the core function of the system to support our clients and support the areas that they're trying to focus on. So in 2020.3, we'll see this 3rd phase of user interface changes across the application. And of course, the introduction of those new cash flow analysis features, which Murray talked through earlier. And as I mentioned previously, as a general rule, we encourage clients to plan to upgrade every 12 to 18 months to stay current on an MYOB supported release. That does provide a little bit of a balance between not too much change, not too much disruption to your organization, but also having a regular enough upgrade that you're staying current, you're staying on a supported version, and able to really embrace the new features and functionality that are being released. From a Kilimanjaro and enterprise perspective, we believe in the importance of methodologies to support your businesses and give you assurance in terms of the process that we take to go through an upgrade. We believe that it's important to minimize risks during these processes. So we have a detailed upgrade methodology to support you through that, everything from user acceptance testing, the training process, giving you a snapshot of your database to do your own testing of your own customizations and bespoke processes you might have in place, and taking you through that upgrade process in a way that ensures you've got that ongoing business continuity.